Hello.
Oh, oh no, I think Brittany froze right when we started.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Fossil Friday Chats. As we wait for Brittany to come back, I just want to say thanks everybody for joining us today after not being here for a couple weeks. Today I'm really excited to welcome Lynnea Jackson. Hey Lynnea,
Hi.
how you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Thanks. Oh,
Thanks.
sorry, not thanks. I'm just really confused because Brittany's sort of moving on my computer, but I can't
Oh
tell.
no. She was right
I
there.
know, we literally were all talking to each other right before we started, of course. That's how things go when you're live streaming, I guess sometimes. Okay, yeah, so how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here.
We're really excited to have you on the show. Let me actually get your bio up. Sorry, everybody, because normally Brittany is in charge of doing this part of it. So let me see if I can pull this up. This is what happens sometimes when, you're away for 2 weeks and then you come back and all of your technology just is like, nah, I'm still on vacation.
Chose the perfect moment to do it.
Actually, right? Let's see. Okay, let's get your bio up and okay, so allow me to introduce all of you today to Lynnea Jackson, a grad student, master's student, University of Minnesota. Lynnea has always wanted to be a paleontologist ever since she was 7 years old. She graduated from Michigan State University with a degree in geology and a minor in anthropology. She enjoys digging in the dirt and discovering dead things that haven't been seen by a living being in millions of years. Well, who doesn't, right? Oh, look, I think Brittany's back.
Good.
You fully
See.
back? Okay.
Headphones, one sec. Hello, everybody. My bad. That was amazing. Okay, so everybody on my end, we were doing our countdown, ready to get going, and then my computer just shut down right when I said hello. So it was hilarious on my end, and I'm sorry for the
That was
technical
so funny because we
difficulties.
were literally talking. I started the countdown, and as soon as I counted one, you froze, and I click, uh-oh, as soon as I hit go live.
And how many times have we done this now? And yet, still be surprised by our own computers and our own
Whatever.
technology. So apologies, everyone. Sorry, Linnea.
That's
But
all right. At least you're back.
my computer wasn't ready to come back from the break either,
They were
apparently.
different countdowns,
Yeah.
apparently.
Okay. Sorry. Well, I've read
Oh,
Linnea's
goodness.
background, so Linnea, now it's up
Thank
to you.
you.
Please go ahead and share your presentation with us today.
All right. So today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my experiences with fieldwork, some of the fossils that I found, and the research that I'm working on right now in grad school. So let's get into it. So like Gabe mentioned, I did my undergrad at Michigan State University. I grew up in Michigan. Um, so I went to MSU. I got my bachelor's degree in geology and a minor in anthropology. And I graduated in spring of this year from my backyard over video. So that was definitely strange. But now I'm at the University of Minnesota. I'm doing a master's in vertebrate paleontology. I'm working with Dr. Pete McAvicky, and I'm studying sauropodomorphs. So I've got a basal sauropodomorph that I'm looking on, and I'm looking at the transition of herbivory. And I'm trying to look at morphological changes through time. So a lot of people always ask me, how did I get into paleontology in the first place? Because it's not super common. So when I was 7, my parents and I took a trip to the Field Museum, and I love the Field Museum. I've loved it ever since. I try to go back there at least once a year. But this is little me. You can my mom I really hate the color pink, but this is young me with Sue. I was having a great time. So here's me. This was my first fieldwork experience. So they had this whole pretty much a giant sandbox, and they had little like casts of fossils buried in the sand. So you can go and dig out your own fossil. So that was super exciting to me as a kid. And then you take your fossil, and they had a whole table, as you can see there. You can make a mold of your fossil. They had paleontologists there to talk to you and explain how everything works, and explain what kind of information you can learn from fossils, explain about Earth history, and just all the really cool, interesting things about paleontology. And so I thought this was just the most amazing experience ever. And I was so shocked that people can do this in real life as their job. And so at 7, I was like, I should do this for the rest of my life. And I guess I just ended up sticking with it. So also, here's a little shout out to the Alf Museum. This is me, I think when I was 9, on a little trip to California with a family friend. And I went to the Alf Museum, so Gabe, you might recognize this, but this is a little less updated than it is now. But yeah, we visited, and I was still like in my paleontology kick, and so I was super excited to see all the fossils. And when I went, we were like the only people in there, and we spent forever reading every possible sign. Everyone else in our group was annoyed that we took so long trying to read all the signs. Ladies who were working there, they were so happy that we were so interested and spent so much time trying to learn everything. They were super nice, and they gave us a bunch of free merch. So I had a hat and like a little fanny pack from the Elf Museum. And so I guess it's just small world. Now we're having an interview. So yeah, this is me. I was keeping up my interest in paleontology. And then throughout the rest of my school, I wasn't super involved in paleontology. I knew that I was interested in it, but I wasn't like doing very much work with it. And I got interested in other things, more science topics like astronomy. I was interested in, and it wasn't until probably my senior year of high school that I got back into paleontology. And so I took my earth science class in high school, and my teacher was really into letting us have hands-on experiences. So that was really exciting for me to be able to go back out in the field and experience paleontology, because we went on a trip to Kansas, I think it was, maybe Kentucky. But yeah, so we went on a trip and we kind of just went exploring for fossils again. That got me back into it. We mostly talked about invertebrates though, because we're friends. So we mostly have invertebrates in Michigan, lots of marine things. But yeah, so I kind of got reinvigorated into paleontology at that point. My teacher told me that I would need to major in geology, most likely, either geology or biology. Then I would have to probably go to grad school if I really wanted to be a paleontologist. And so from that point on, I kind of knew what I needed to do. So then I went to MSU for my undergrad. I majored in geology. There were 2 paleontologists at MSU, so they didn't have a super strong paleontology program, but I was still able to do some undergrad research with both of them and present my findings. So that was a really great chance to get involved in research and kind of learn a little bit more about what it actually means to be a paleontologist and the type of work that you do as a paleontologist. And I was super fortunate fortunate to have the most amazing mentor and advisor in the world. Her name's Denise, and she basically took me under her wing and really supported me in all of my goals and tried to help me get into paleontology opportunities and meet a lot more people. So that was a really great experience for me to be able to have such a supportive environment. And so at this point, I kind of decided I'm more into vertebrate paleontology. So from there, I wanted to go on a dig, so I thought that would be fun. So I started looking into opportunities and see what kind of digs are available for me to go on. And that's how I found the Bighorn Basin Paleontological Institute. So I want to give a huge shout out to BBPI because I love that program. So I found BBPI, they offer a college course in field methods in paleontology. So that's offered through Rocky Mountain College in Montana. And I had never been away from home for any period of time in my life, but I thought it sounded like the most amazing experience to go and dig in the dirt and find dinosaurs. I'm going to do this. And I went and I had the most amazing experience ever. So BBPI, they offer fieldwork experiences for not just students, but the general public as well. You can go experience what it's like to be on a dig. And it's a really great opportunity for anyone to be able to learn about Earth history and to get the chance to discover something and say that you've done something that's really cool and you found a fossil. So it's a really great program to get people involved in science. So I flew out to Montana and found some fossils. Here's me in the field, out in the field, digging in the dirt, and it's so great to be a part of something, working together to find fossils. And you're all just having a really great time. It was so amazing to be able to wake up to that view every day and then go out in the field and just have fun with the chance that you might find something new. So that was a really great experience. And I really fell in love with doing field work at that time. So that was a really fun time for me. And so I wanted to share a little bit about what field work is actually like for anyone who might be interested. So here's some pictures of me and some of the things that I found. The first year I found an ilium of an Allosaurus, so that's the hip bone. So you can see in the top left corner, that is the ilium. It's probably about like this big. It's kind of large. So that was really cool to find something, and then you start brushing, just keep exposing more of it, and it just keeps going. And finally, you come up with a whole hip bone, and you think, wow, like no one has ever seen this before. So that was a really cool experience for me. And then I knew at that moment that I enjoy paleontology and that paleontology was what I really wanted to do for the rest of my life. So that was a really cool experience for me. Then on the right side, that's a rib of a Diplodocus. And then in the bottom left corner, that is a centrum, so part of a vertebrae of maybe they think it's a Brachiosaurus. And that one's really big. You can see the hammer for scale. It's huge. So that was, I really enjoyed being out there in the field, discovering new things. So a lot of people ask, how do you even find fossils? And a lot of people think that there's nothing left to find, but there are quite a lot of fossils that are still just waiting to be dug up. And so the first thing for fossils is you have to know what rock formation you're looking in. And if you're looking for a specific type of fossil from a certain time period, then you have to know what rock formation fits that time period. Read up on it a little bit and see what other fossils might have been found, so you know that you're looking in the right spot. And then you have to find a good outcrop. So you have to look for exposed rock that you can actually search. So once you have that and you've got your information, well, first of all, you have to know if that land is available for you to be able to go dig around. But once you're there, you go prospecting. So you basically just kind of walk around, see if you can find any fossils exposed, or maybe see if you notice any small fragments of fossils floating down from any source that they might be coming from. And hopefully, if you do find a trail of fragments, that can lead you to the source. And then once you do find the source, then you can start digging. And so it's a little bit hard to notice fossils when you first start looking, but once you kind of get the hang of it, you'll notice they have a different kind of shine than the rest of the rock around them. And so it's a little bit easier to pick them out once you kind of know what you're looking for. And so what we did here at this site was we just start shoveling, because there's a lot of sediment that you have to dig away. It's called the overburden, so you have to get rid of it, and we just pretty much start digging until we hit something. So that's very different compared with maybe an archaeological dig site, where they're very meticulous about making sure they've got their 1 meter by 1 meter grid squares and labeling every little layer and only going down like millimeter by millimeter. In this case, we will, and if you hit something, then you put it back together later, and then you know where to look. So yeah, you just start digging. So we have shovels, chisels, and then once you get down to the actual fossil, you've got little fine tools like awls and brushes to get sediment away. Because the sediment was very loose, it wasn't very compacted like hard rock. The Diplodocus rib bone, though, that was in some hard sandstone, but we're lucky that we just mostly had to shovel and brush away dirt here. But yeah, so that was a really great experience learning how to prepare the fossils in the field. So that was really exciting to be able to find new things like that. And then another important thing about fieldwork is documentation. So you have to document everything. Are super important. You have to record information about location, record what you found. You have to give everything a number so that you know you can reference once you're back in the lab you found and where you found it. And then also it's important to remember where exactly you found everything. So in this case, you can see in the bottom left corner, that's an example of a grid that I had made. And you just basically have a datum, so that's your anchor point, and you get the location of your datum. So you know the latitude and longitude. You can shoot compass directions to each corner of your grid. And your grid can be any size that you want it to be, maybe a meter by a meter. And then you can mark the locations of all the fossils that you find in that grid. And so since you've got the location down and the compass directions down, then if you return to that site, or know exactly where it is and exactly the orientation of the things that you found were. And that's really important, especially, economy and the way that things have been preserved. So that was a really interesting thing to learn, that it's really important to document everything. So here's a few pictures of me in the field. There's me writing my notes, record everything. So here is the fun part. Found your fossil, you've got to actually get it out of the ground. So this part I really enjoy. This is jacketing. So in this part, you have to first trench of the fossil. So you undercut the sediment that it's laying in. You try to get most of the sediment away. So you leave a fossil, and then you cut away as much as you can to end up flipping it over and taking it out. So that's what we're doing in the top left. We're cutting around, trying to get away as much sediment as we can. And then probably the most important tool that you could have on a dig site is glue. Because no matter what you do, things are good. Glue just helps preserve everything, especially so they don't dry out in the sun, and it helps keep everything intact while you're out in the field. So we put a lot of glue, and then next we put on a layer of paper towel or toilet paper, just to have a kind of cushion and a layer from the fossil to the plaster. And then on top of that, we have aluminum foil that is another layer of protection from the plaster. Start mixing the plaster. And this part is very fun, but it's very messy too. So you have to wait until it starts to thicken. And then once it does start to thicken, it starts to go really quickly. So you've got to have a lot of people involved so that you can actually get the plaster on quickly before it all hardens up. Here we are, we're mixing plaster. Once it does thicken, you put the burlap strips in there, and then you cover your aluminum foiled fossil in the strips, going all kinds of directions to make sure that it's secure. And then you wait for that to dry, and that side is called the bottom jacket, which is a little bit confusing because it looks like it's on top, but it's called bottom because you're going to end up flipping the whole thing over. And then you're going to repeat the same process to the new top side. So then you have to make sure that you label everything so that once you get it back in the lab, you know what it is that you're dealing with. So yeah, you repeat the whole thing for the new top side, and you wait for that to dry, and then it's in a nice little cocoon that can be safely transported back to wherever the repository is, wherever the bones may be stored. And that's usually at museums or with you, so that further research and preparation can be done on the bones in a safe, more stable environment. So here you guys can see in the bottom left-hand corner, there's all of us all messy with plaster goo. It's really fun to make these jackets. And at BBPI, since we're digging up dinosaurs, they're huge. So these jackets end up being thousands of pounds, and they're very difficult to get out. But that's part of what makes it fun and challenging, is to solve these challenges and figure out how to actually get these fossils out of the ground. And in a lot of cases, paleontology is not all about dinosaurs. So a lot of other times, if you're working with smaller things, you're not going to end up with such huge jackets, but they're still fun to make. So it was at this site that I started getting interested in sauropods. At BBPI, in that same location where we were digging, they found a suawasia, which is a type of sauropod, and they found the tail of it completely articulated, which was so cool. It was really interesting to see, and it was just so perfectly preserved. It was so interesting. And then we also were uncovering a lot of Diplodocus, and I was just fascinated by sauropods, and so I thought I would like to work on sauropods, hopefully. And that kind of led me into my own research. So I'm working on a basal sauropodomorph. It pretty much means, so sauropods are the giant, long-necked, herbivorous dinosaurs that you're all familiar with, like Diplodocus. But I'm working with a basal one, which means an early form of sauropod. So one of the youngest kind. So this one that I'm working on is from the early Jurassic of Antarctica. So that is from around 195 million years old. This is a picture of the skull. and it's only about 15 centimeters long, and so it's really not that big. It's called the Jolly Roger. That's its kind of nickname, but it's a new species, so it hasn't been officially described or given a name yet. So I'll be working on this specimen as part of my research for my master's project. But since this is only my first semester of grad school, I haven't gotten very far in my research, but I can tell you a little bit about what I'll be doing with this specimen. And I can tell you a little bit about the field work that went into collecting it. So this specimen, like I said, is from Antarctica. And so on the left, you can see Pangea, the orientation of at the time that this fossil would have been alive. Antarctica was not quite as southern as it is today, and clearly not so glaciated like it is now. And it was found in the Transantarctic Mountains on Mount Kirkpatrick in the Handsome Formation. So Antarctica does not have the greatest fossil record, and that is partially due to the fact that it's Antarctica, and it's very, very difficult to get there and actually do field work. A lot of it is covered in ice, so you can't get to exposed rock. But Antarctica does have some fossil plants, amphibians, invertebrates, some reptiles, and of course some dinosaurs. So on this expedition to Antarctica, they found 6 dinosaurs. This is where my dinosaur was found. So off to the left, where there's the 2 people by that orange sandstone outcrop, that's where my specimen was found. It was really hard sandstone, so they had to drill holes into it and kind of chip off giant chunks. So they found bones, but they didn't really know what exactly they had. So they found these 6 dinosaurs in kind of a football field sized area centered on Mount Kirkpatrick. So that was kind of a shock to find them. And it was really interesting to be able to discover these sauropods because they didn't know what was in there. So they took these giant chunks back to the lab, and then they CT scanned them. So this is a picture of the CT scan. This is one of the specimens that my species is. So they found 2 specimens of. So the yellow are the vertebrae. The red is the forelimb girdle. Purple is ribs, and then the orange are the forelimbs and hind limbs. But for my research, I'll only be dealing with the skull, CT scans of that as well. But these are some of the postcranial elements as well, and then you can see a little reconstruction of what it might have looked like. And so some work has already been done on the postcranial parts of it, and so some histology with bones. So they took little tiny sections of bone, little slices, from the femur and from the gastralia, which is kind of the rib cage but in the front. So they took these slices of bones to look for lines of arrested growth. That's what LAGS stands for. So lines of arrested growth, you can kind of think of them like tree rings, but for bone. So they show how old the species or the specimen was when it died. And so there are no lags found in the femur, but there is at least 1 lag found in the gastralia. And so from that, we could conclude a juvenile specimen, maybe 1 or 2 years old. And that's probably why it's so small, along with the fact that it is a basal sauropod, so it wasn't very large yet. And so for my own research, I'll be using the cranium of this sauropodomorph to try to understand the transition from carnivory to herbivory. We know them for being giant as herbivores, And those two things are deeply tied to one another because herbivory sauropods to get so large with the amount of food that they could eat. And so I want to use this new species to understand how that trait arose, because sauropods were not always herbivorous. Sauropodomorphs were carnivorous. And so we want to understand that transition of how did sauropods actually become herbivorous and what allowed them to eat plants and digest plants, and how could they process them, because it's really difficult actually to chew plants. Plant matter is really tough. You've got to have the right kind of teeth to be able to chew plants. You got to have strong enough jaws to rip the fibrous material. I won't be looking at this, but you have to have the right gut elements to be able to process the plant material and actually get any nutrition from it. So using this specimen, we want to understand how that transition actually happened. We're looking at craniodental anatomy, so we want to understand how the skull was involved in processing food, and any clues that it might give us as to where this specimen fits in the lineage of sauropodomorphs. So we want to know, where does this specimen fit in compared to other sauropodomorphs, and see if this specimen is a little bit more derived, maybe it's more basal, and just understand how this species contributes to that pattern of becoming more herbivorous. And so to do this, there's been CT scans done already, so I'm using CT scans. The top picture there is a 3D reconstruction of the skull. So you can see it you put the slices together and then you can see it in 3D. So I'll be working with those CT scans to try to extract different parts of the skull. Hopefully I'll be able to extract the jaw, and then I'll be able to study the jaw and the mandible, understand how the bite force would work in this particular specimen. Try to reconstruct the skull as well, because it's squished, it's laterally compressed. So looking at it in this way, it looks complete, but if you were to look at it from head on, it's probably squished like this. So we want to be able to reconstruct how it would have been able to bite, and be able to look at only the jaw and the teeth. So we can do that with geometric morphometrics. We can compare shapes of this specimen with other specimens. And geometric morphometrics is basically just a method to compare shape in a quantitative way. So you can take little landmark points on your specimen, and you know exactly where those landmark points are, and you can take those same landmark points on a different specimen and compare how those points have changed in location, so you can compare differences in shape. So I want to do that to try to understand the disparity in sauropodomorphs, and try to understand the diversity in sauropodomorphs between this Antarctic species and those that may have been present in South America and South Africa as well, and try to see if there are any regional differences in morphology. And then also I would like to do a finite element analysis. So that is a way to model stress and strain on a structure. So I would need a 3D model like the one pictured above, but I would need a little more detailed one to be able to do this. So that way you can model where the most stress or where the most strain is on your skull, to see, can tell you information about bite force and how that skull may have been able to process food. So all of these methods will be able to tell me a little bit about how this particular species fits into the global distribution of sauropodomorphs at that time, and how this species may have contributed to the transition from carnivory to herbivory. So since it's only my first semester of grad school, I haven't gotten super far in my research. But yeah, hopefully in the future, I'll get a little bit more done and I'll be able to come back with some results. But yeah, this is what I'm working on for right now. And I'd like to say thank you to everyone for listening. A special thank you to Pete for advising my research. Huge thank you to the Alf Museum and the Western Science Center for having me. And thank you to everyone for listening.
Thank you as well. That was awesome. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Let me see. Okay. Am I still sharing my screen?
See.
Okay. Gabe, we can't hear you.
How about now?
Nope, unfortunately not.
How about now?
There we go. Thank you, everybody, for going through us with our technology issues after being gone for a couple weeks.
We're still trying to get back in the swing of things.
I know. Thank you so much, Lynnea. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
both Gabe and I were like pictures, especially where we're like, "Aw."
Yeah. Baby Elf.
I know you've been able to see the way the museum looked even before I never got to see that. And then when you show the photo of you as a kid there, I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then I was like, and now she's here doing an interview for the museum. I was like, that's so freaking cool.
It came full circle.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of things came full circle for me too, because I visited the Alf Museum and now I'm doing the favorite place in the world was the Field Museum, and now I'm working with Pete McAvicky, and he used to be the curator of the Field Museum. So yeah, everything just kind of worked out.
Yeah.
Oh, that sparks so much joy.
This sparks joy.
And actually, I didn't realize that, Gabe, I didn't realize that you worked there. Like after the first met you, I knew like from your social media, I saw Elf Museum, but I totally never put it together with that random museum that I visited that one time until I found that fanny pack at my house. And then I noticed that it was the same place and I was like, oh my gosh, wait, he works there.
You know what's funny is we just finally gave away the last of those tiny fanny packs. You're talking about the really tiny one, right?
Yeah.
We just finally gave the last ones away like last year. So when you said that, I was like, wow, we've had those that long.
Where do you guys tend to stick around? Well, now, Lynnea, when COVID's over, you'll have to complete the circle and come over to the Western Science Center as well.
Yeah.
So I can meet you in person. But yeah, this was a great talk. Thank you so much. That sauropod morph, kind of adorable.
Yeah. The little the reconstruction of it, it's kind of cute.
Yeah, it's just a little cute, sharp teeth, but cute.
So here's a question I know that's like on a lot of people's minds. Are you going to be able to go to Antarctica?
Yes.
Because of that fossil? Do you hope to?
That would be really, really amazing. I don't know when the next expedition is happening. So I'm going to say no. Because I don't know when. I don't know if Pete is going to go back. If Pete does go back, I don't know if he would invite me. Maybe he would, hopefully. But if it happens sometime soon, that would be a really cool opportunity. But we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Can you imagine that kind of field work? Oh, man. That would be so cool, especially knowing that, for field work is so important for not just for your story, but like for your career, obviously. But to know that, to watch you go from like those photos of you as a kid doing like a sandbox field work to like one day having a photo of Lynnea in Antarctica looking for dinosaurs, that would be the coolest photo story ever.
Yeah. That would be so cool. So I don't know, hopefully, maybe someday.
That literally was the first question on our chat, was from our our friends at Bigborn Basin asking, would you get to go and would you take us all with you? So,
Of course, yes. Everyone gets to come.
okay, cool. Group road trip. Well, sea trip.
Oh, can you imagine Can you imagine the field stories we'd have out of there? Speaking
Yeah.
of, Lynnea, do you have a favorite field story that you like to tell that you're allowed to tell?
Hmm. I don't know. I have to think.
I know
Well, I
I
know.
have
So
some
there were
silly
other
things that have
people
happened.
in our group, um, and I think they got a little bit tired of being out in the sun all day. And so they were walking around, and I just was minding my own business, digging up my fossil. And then I just see them off in the distance having a party on a rock in the distance and just playing music. And I was like, what is going on? They've gone crazy. I think they have sunstroke. But yeah.
Oh,
Everyone's got their fieldwork tunes.
I mean, I haven't done much field work comparatively to like a lot of other people, but when I have done it, it's very fun and like you make really great memories. Like for me, on my first day, like in the like doing a full field season, we were coming back from the field site and back to the camp, and then I was gonna jump off like a 1 foot ledge down just because I was like trying to be silly, and the ground looked like it was dry mud cracks, but it was just the surface and the bottom was still like wet,
Oh,
soggy mud. So when I jumped, I fell and kept
Oh
going,
no.
and then I was like covered waist deep in mud, and I was like, okay, and I was just sitting there like, okay. And then the rest of my the team comes out and they're all like ha, just laughing, and I'm like stuck hyperventilating and I'm
Oh.
like, this is gonna be funny later, but I think I'm gonna die right now. And also that was the first day, so like I was covered in mud. I was like just like over it for that day. My shoes were pretty much ruined, but no, yeah, that's my first field day experience. Maybe not as fun as a party on a rock, but still.
Yeah. Yeah, my first field day experience in a more than just, off the side of the road, like one day, in a nearby field site when we actually like went out into the field. I hiked for 3 hours and then I napped for 6. it was, it was, we were at higher elevation and it was really hot and it was the first day. Afterwards, we got our second wind, but that first day I just crashed. I think I
yeah.
was not prepared for the physical toll of field work, I think, the first day.
Mhm. I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah. Let's see. Here's a good question, Lynnea. This is also from our friends at the Bigborn Basin. Are the rest of the fossil remains of the specimen you're working on as nicely preserved as the skull?
I think they are mostly because they're preserved in that hard sandstone, so they're just kind of in there. I don't know if they've actually been extracted yet or not, but I know that I do have CT scans of them available. So I think at least from those, they look pretty nice. But I haven't actually seen either of it in person yet because it's on rotation as part of a museum exhibit that started at the Field Museum, and now it's going around the country. I think it's in Utah right now. But sometime in the future, I will be able to get my hands on the specimen and see it in person.
So,
I've seen it twice.
okay, Gabe. That's awesome. Are there?
You've seen it too, haven't you?
Oh, that's right. I have.
Yeah,
I
we
have.
all were there.
I remember. Okay, yeah, that's my fault. I'm sorry. Yeah, I have definitely seen it. Are there any other questions like that you would like to use the rest of the specimen to answer? Because I know like your current like with the skull, it's all about like that transition from carnivory to herbivory. Is there any way that the rest of the specimen can help you with that, or anything else that like you want to look at the specimen for?
That would be interesting to be able to look at um, the midsection of it and see, whether it was capable of processing herbivorous material, which I'm guessing probably was, but they have to have the right kind of structure to be able to have such a large gut to process herbivorous material. So I might be able to incorporate that. But part of the stage that I'm at right now is still trying to narrow down all the things that I'm going to do with my research. So it's a lot of things that I could do.
That's like the one of the biggest joys, I guess, of research is just like the potential when you're like trying to come up with the question before you actually start it is just like your brain can go into so many directions and have so many ideas. Of course, you got to pare it down to like what's plausible and like what's because it's science. But still, like you can have fun before you actually start of like letting your imagination run wild and try to figure out these stories of these cool specimens.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the hardest part is telling yourself when to stop, especially when I think you're going for your MS and you're going to try and graduate, so you have to make sure that whatever you do, you can do in the space of graduating. That's hard. Just stopping yourself. I think in one of my the research that I'm currently doing, I think we literally said in one of the drafts of the paper, we would like to answer these questions, but that's beyond the scope of this paper.
Yeah. There's just so much that you could do. So, still
so many mysteries.
Things that I'm going to do.
Yeah, right. So, besides, obviously Antarctica, which would be amazing to see you go. Let's put that out there into the universe, everybody. Linnea goes to Antarctica.
Somebody take me.
Where else would you like to do field work in, since we're kind of on that theme? Is there any dream places you'd love to work at?
I really want to go to Argentina.
Ooh.
So I think that's where the Paleontology Maximo from the Field Museum was found. And ever since I found that out, I thought that would be the coolest place in the world to visit and maybe do field work there. So that sounds very interesting. Maybe someday.
Yeah. Okay, let's put that into the universe too. Linnea goes to Argentina. We'll just go down the alphabet for you.
Yeah,
Argentina, Antarctica. We'll just keep going. Make sure you get all those really cool places.
On that same vein, like, so if Argentina is like your dream place to do field work, what would be your dream find? Like I
don't know. I feel like usually people are so focused on finding like the biggest thing or like something interesting like that. So maybe I'll like to find the weirdest one. Maybe I could find a sauropod that is so weirdly shaped that.
Sorry, I'm gonna mute my mic really quick. They started mowing our lawn like just now.
Don't they know we're doing a show?
You work from home,
Yeah. Work from home problems. Yeah, I definitely just closed my door because my neighbor's dog was barking. Yeah, like something really. I like that idea. Like not the biggest thing, especially because Argentina has like Patagotitan and everything, but like something weird, something unusual. That would be cool. Do you think you're gonna like? Are you pretty interested in sticking with dinosaurs?
I really do like dinosaurs. So honestly, I don't know very much because there's just so much to learn. But I think I would like to stick with dinosaurs. Maybe not stick with sauropods the whole time. I can't narrow myself down to just one. But yeah, I do like dinosaurs.
Because I know my cousins are watching and they always love this question. Do you have any advice because I know, like for you, when your parents took you to the field, that was a big inspiration for you, and then when you got to do field work, that was really important. Do you have any advice for anyone who is interested in trying out something like that, how they can go look for opportunities or even just make connections like that for anybody who's interested in starting, like doing the fieldwork side of paleontology?
Mm-hmm. So my advice would be to start with your local museum. So museums are super, super important. I love museums. I love going to museums. Obviously, ever since I was little, I read every single sign in the whole museum. Um, so I really love museums. They offer a lot of outreach opportunities for kids, really people of all ages to learn. And so you can start there, talk to your paleontologist, and see if they know about any opportunities that might be available to do field work. The way that I found BBPI was just to start Googling and see what opportunities were available. So yeah, just start looking around. Maybe if you've got a university or college in your town, start there and see what resources they might have for you to get involved.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's all good advice. And it just kind of goes to show everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Like the Alf Museum. Just
Mm-hmm.
kidding. I'm gonna ask you for that photo later because it's so cute.
It's so cute.
I want to add it to like our wall of like previous people who have come to the museum who became paleontologists.
Yeah.
That is a special, unique joy. Like when someone comes up to you, like every once in a while, I've had like a teenager come up to me at the museum at the Western Science Center, and be like, "I came here when I was a kid," and it's just it's special.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I like doing outreach opportunities, just to work with kids and see the excitement that they have. And then, like, imagine you're just like me.
Was there a
Let's
question in the chat, Britt?
Yep. This is from Ron. Let's see. Um, Looks like and Ron, I'm sorry if I word this correction incorrectly from the way that you meant it, but if you find like a vertebra, how do you know which dinosaur it belongs to? So when you find a fossil in the field, how do you kind of understand, piece together what you're looking at?
That's a really good question. So I also had the same exact question when I was out in the field. So I found that centrum, and then when we were doing our kind of our debrief later on in the night, one of their Jason Poole, he said that he was thinking that it was a brachiosaurus, and I was thinking, how do you know that? And so I asked, and he said he kind of knows based on the size, since it's so huge, that you'd expect that it would be a sauropod and something big. And so he was looking through Dinosauria, which I just happen to have right here.
Yes.
For some reason.
The Dino Bible.
So he had that, and he was looking at the figures in there to compare the shape of what we had with things that have been drawn. And so that was how he came to that conclusion. But in the field, it's maybe a little bit more difficult to guess at what you have before you are able to prepare it fully. But you know what bone you've got, assuming you know your anatomy. And then if you know what else is there, you might be able to make guesses based on size and see.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a really good question to ask, because, as paleontologists, you can be like, I think it's this. But most people don't know how you come to that conclusion. So I think that's really important to
Sometimes we
explain.
don't know.
Yeah, that's also very true.
I'm just laughing because I'm just remembering a time when someone came to the museum for like a fossil ID day, and like they just like walk right up and they're like, "What's this?" And I was like, I don't know. Sorry, I don't know. And they're like, "Are you a paleontologist?" I'm like, "Yeah, but I still don't know. Sorry."
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't know every single bone of every single organism, but you can make an educated guess.
Yeah, we can get close. We've got comparisons and stuff like that.
So,
Any more questions in the
I
chat?
think that is it for us today. Lots of good questions,
All right,
guys.
cool. Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for joining us on today's episode. And thank you, Lynnea, especially for being our guest. That was such a great story. And again, like it's just sparked so much joy to see your journey and like your story, how like where you started and where you are today, and we're really looking forward to seeing more about that research. And again, everyone advocate for Lynnea going to Antarctica and Argentina. All right, put that out there in the universe. Put in the chat. Just somebody give her a grant so she can go already. Okay,
For
so
having me.
yeah. Hopefully we'll see more of your research soon once your second semester starts going, and hopefully you get the
Maybe
specimen
next
back.
year.
All right. So thank you again, everybody, so much for joining us. If you like this program and want to support programs like it at the Alf Museum and the Western Science Center, you can find links on how to do that in the description below. And as always, please like and subscribe to our channel and join us next week for more stories from the world of paleontology. Bye, everybody.